If you want to be curious about the world and you want to push yourself, I think it is. So journalism is quite a broad field. And whenever people say to me, how do I get into journalism? I always say, what exactly do you mean? Because as you say, there's news, there's lifestyle, there's sport, there's business, finance, consumer-led publications, B2B. So first of all, you've got to think about where you want to go. And you've always said feature writing. So then the second thing for me is, what topics do you want to explore? For me, in my world, there's a paradox where I cover a lot of topics, but I also feature write, things that I'm interested in and have become an expert in over the past 10 years. And by expert, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have written about that. It just means that you follow that topic. The pitfalls where journalists often end up is that they force an interest. They end up pigeonholing themselves into things they're not interested in, and that just comes across in your writing. Have a brainstorm about what you're interested in, and actually a lot of my feature writing work is inspired by my own environment. You don't need to be on social media in a way to get that. And a lot of journalism courses, they'll say, look at what's trending, look at what the conversation is. And that's true to an extent. I always just go back to myself and my surroundings, where I live. Maybe I live in a part of the UK that is suffering from something. Local businesses are suffering, maybe. I don't know, there must be something. How do you find those editors? There's a whole load of resources out there. Twitter, some great lists you find on Twitter. Even if you just pick up a normal paper, a paper, an old-fashioned paper, and you kind of scout the writers and the editors on that paper. What I do is I just search them up on Twitter. I follow them. If I don't have Twitter, you can just still see their profile. They have an email on their profiles. So I just usually dig that out and then contact them with story ideas. Yeah, build relationships with editors. So again, another paradox is that your ideas are a package that you sell, but also it's actually good to have relationships. Another thing is stalking editors online who you don't know. It actually works. So I use LinkedIn a lot. LinkedIn is a funny place because I think maybe even 2 years ago, it was quite corporate, but actually it's changed a lot, especially for journalists. Random opportunities work as well as your organic relationships from before. Still to this day, I don't have any journalism qualifications, actually. A lot of journalists in the industry do have journalism qualifications, like City University, etc. And that's good to have. I wouldn't say no to it. But actually, I think what makes a good journalist is people skills. In the 90s, picking up the phone, talking to people, actually, those are the skills that last, because honestly, I see young journalists enter and they're really scared to pick up the phone. They're terrified. They'll use social media. They'll trawl through Facebook and Twitter. Again, good resource, especially during the pandemic, but they're terrified of speaking to people, and that's just not going to work. So yeah, I think that's your biggest strength, actually. And that never dates. That never expires. I think as a journalist, you need to win people's trust within 5-10 minutes. And if you don't win that, they're not going to speak to you. There are free resources out there. I just made a note of a few, actually. So journalism.co.uk is a great resource. They teach you mobile journalism and things that maybe you don't need at all. But it's just interesting to read up on what people are doing in data journalism, visual journalism, that kind of thing. It's quite geeky, but it's quite cool. Another thing that's really hit off in the pandemic and is a great resource that for you are newsletters. I've noticed a lot of journalists have set up their own personal newsletters on Substack and things like that. and it's really flown in the past year. Companies would have these courses and, big institutions, but that's all gone. It's now straight person to person, journalists giving their own views of the industry and insights. And I think it's a really great resource, newsletters, and they're quite personal as well because they're just straight to your email. Some of them are like crowdfunded, so you pay like £1 a month or something, really ridiculous. A lot of journalists use it as a kind of secondary or tertiary way of, supplementing their income, as well as, getting other people into the industry. Actually, it's quite good if you get a no, because then that person is responsive and then you just pitch that person again. Yeah, I think that's just how the industry works, and it can be quite disheartening. But again, build those relationships and, make them organic. The question of it being good is quite a difficult one. It depends what we mean by good. I guess the starting point is where you are in life. So you need to think about, in terms of maybe stability, like, do you need financial stability? If not, I'm not sure pure journalism is the place to be. But if you want to remain curious, if you want to be on an adventure, if you want to do something that you're proud of, and, kind of go to sleep at night thinking, oh, I really achieved something, then yeah, it is. If you want to be curious about the world and you want to push yourself, I think it is. And actually, one of the problems of the industry that you could offer as a solution is that a lot of people in the industry lack life experience outside. It's a bit like politics. And actually, if you come into the industry with a lot of life experiences you have, it actually strengthens your idea generation. It strengthens your motivation. I think you're willing to open a window to communities and people that would make good contacts for, quotes and stories. Knowing yourself. So I put down here my notes just beforehand. I circled identity, but that could mean anything to you. And that doesn't have to be a political identity. It could just be how you feel, what you've grown up with, and applying that to your work, because that's where I find my strength in who I am. A lot of journalists tend to try and change themselves so much. They go with the flow, which is fine, but kind of knowing yourself and sticking to that is such a powerful resource in an ever-changing world. And again, kind of knowing your niche, but not pigeonholing yourself too much to that niche. Yeah, and always having your eyes open. Actually, it's funny because I have this rule where I try not to, when I go out, I try not to have headphones in too much. There are times that I've been in a cafe and I've sat down on a table and I've struck a conversation with somebody, and then I got their number. This actually happened just before lockdown last year, and I was in a cafe and I sat down next to a woman. She was a market trader in Camden Market here in London, and we became friends. And actually through her, I got a really exclusive story for Business Insider. And I only got that because I had a chat with her at a cafe because I was bored. Yeah, just kind of being open to talking to people, not just for your job, but just normally. And those doors just kick open.